To write the equation of this sine function, I'm going to first want to isolate one period of the function. This graph is showing me more than one period, more than one cycle, and so what I want to do is figure out where my graph begins to repeat from. So for example, if I start following this graph along, if I get to this point, the graph has still not repeated yet because then it drops down, but as soon as I get back to here, now the graph does begin to repeat. So really, all I want to take a look at is just this part of the graph. That's one period, one cycle of the wave. So all of this stuff I don't need to write the equation. All right, so to do this then, it'll be very similar to what we did in the last videos if you watch those. I want to make sure I start with y equals or x equals, or I'm sorry, y equals or f of x equals. Next up, I'm going to want to know the amplitude. Well, that's how high the graph goes from your midline. So from the midline up to the highest point, I can see that that's 2. So the amplitude of this graph must be 2. I know this is a sine graph because, well, the easy way is they told me. I also know it's probably going to be easiest to write this as a sine function because it begins from the midline from the origin and goes up from there. So I'm going to know it's a sine graph and not a cosine graph. Next up, then, I need to find the b value of this graph. And remember, the b value is not the period, although those are related to each other. The period of this graph is how long it takes to repeat, so 2 pi over 3. And so what I'll do off to the side here to show some work is my formula is period equals 2 pi, the normal period, divided by the b value. So if I plug in the period that I have, 2 pi over 3, and then I set that equal to the formula, 2 pi times b, I can see that b must come out to be 3. Since the tops are already the same, the bottoms have to match up, and so b is 3. I could also find that by cross multiplying, so if you don't believe me it's 3, try to cross multiply that and you'll see that b is in fact 3. So that's the number that's going to get plugged into my equation. So sine of 3, and then don't forget the times x at the end of the problem. So there will be the equation that represents this sine function.